What's up, guys? It's week 2 of quarantine lessons with Mr. Guillory. We're going to continue on pad today, and we're going to kind of keep talking about rolls and play this little etude that you should have gotten from Mr. Linder. This is actually out of the Mark Wessel's A Fresh Approach to Snare Drum book, which I believe y'all did in 6th grade. But this is kind of towards the end. This is lesson 15, and it's mainly dealing with combining all kinds of things, rolls, dynamics, and different time signatures and syncopations. Okay, so I kind of threw this etude at you as a all-encompassing thing to work on for all of those. Okay, you'll notice if you look at your music, I kind of have it bracketed from the first bar to, I believe, the 20th bar so on the 3rd line, and that's kind of what I technically want to make sure y'all can do that much. And then you'll notice it says extra credit after that, and that's just if you feel like you want to keep reading ahead, there's a diminuendo and a poco retardando, which means a slight slowdown that goes towards the end. That would be really nice to hear as well. But if that feels like it's too much in a week, that's okay. I won't worry about that. But we're gonna talk a little bit about dynamics as it pertains to continue to talk about rolls, but we're also going to talk about dynamics and counting in 3/4 and things like that today. I didn't write out an exercise that I'm about to do for you right now, but it's what we're going to do is just a simple 8 on a hand exercise that everybody knows. The first one is going to deal with we're going to do a bar of 8 notes in 4/4 at forte, followed by a bar of 8 notes at piano, right? And then we'll do that with the left hand, 8 forte, 8 piano, and then 8 together, 8 down, and then we'll do the same thing alternating. So it's still the same form as that roll exercise I gave you last week. We're just going to be doing them as 8 notes, but it's an 8 on a hand exercise. Let me show you how it's done real quick, and we'll talk about things to think about, okay? So here's our warm-up for this. We're going to think about right here. 1 and 2 and ready and go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and piano. 2, 3, 4. Left hand, 2 and 3 and 4 and piano. 2, 3, 4. Together. 2, 3, 4. Piano. 2, 3, 4. And then alternate. Play that one all loud. 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Okay. So simple exercise. 8 right. Down, 8 right, 8 left up, 8 down, 8 together up, 8 down, and then alternate a loud one with a soft one, okay? So simple little exercise there. So what I want you to think about when you play this is on the very last note of your loud stroke, your fingers have to come into play. So this is mostly wrist that we're playing these 8 notes with, but that last note that you play has to be a downstroke so that it can get out to the edge and play a 1-inch stick height, right? So we're thinking about 7 to 9 inches for forte, kind of depending on how much you're trying to how much wrist stroke you're trying to use, and then you catch that 8th note with your finger so that the very first note of the piano is down to 1 to 2 inches, okay? And you also want to move out. I think you guys all know when we play softer dynamics, we want to move closer to the edge. So this is a little bit of placement practice while we do this too. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, squeeze. And on that 8th note, I'm going to squeeze my back fingers to keep the rebound from coming up high. And then I'm also going to move out to the edge. Okay, so it's going to kind of look like this when we flow. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up, 2, 3, 4. Squeeze. 1, 2, 3, 4. Together. 2, 3, 4. Squeeze. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Last one. We stay loud on this one. Squeeze. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Okay? Simple enough, right? The next one is the same form, but we're going to think 8 notes of 1 forte, either piano or forte. We're going to start with forte, and then 8 notes of decrescendoing down to piano, okay? And then we're going to do that again the opposite way. We're going to start 8 notes down and then up. Let me show you what I'm talking about here, okay? So same kind of exercise, start big, 8 notes are all big, and then 8 notes down. Ready? 1 and 2 and ready and go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and decrescendo 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Decrescendo 3 and 4. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Okay? So same thing with that, except we're gonna, when we go down, we're essentially thinking from 9" to 1". So it's almost like every single stroke is 1 inch less as we get to that piano, right? So we're kind of going 9 inches, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're also going out to the edge, right? So watch that one more time. And 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Okay? And then the last one that we'll do is the exact opposite of it. Okay? So we'll start on the edge, 1 inch, and then we'll crescendo in the second bar, right? So we'll go like this, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and crescendo and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and crescendo and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and alternate and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. And you can just add a beat at the end to kind of accent the end of that exercise, okay? So simple little warm up there, and that's really just about controlling your fingers and your stroke. So I go to the edge whenever I'm soft, but I also, if you notice, I kind of go from using a full wrist motion to kind of using arm, right? Softer strokes, especially when you're nervous, you want to have bigger muscle groups control that stroke. So I'm not trying to do a 1 inch wrist stroke at the end. I'm actually trying to change it to an arm stroke. So this is really important for this exercise, is as you go out, I kind of transfer from my wrist into an arm stroke. You see that? Right around just under mezzo piano, I kind of go from this wrist to just a little bit of arm, right? So what I do is kind of lock my wrist and let my shoulder rotation take over, okay? So try to think about that in the last 2 beats whenever you're playing something soft. So anytime you're playing soft, I'm not trying to do that with my wrist. I'm trying to do a little bit of this, right? Almost like a roll motion, okay? Excuse me. So those are your warm-ups for this. Now let's just talk a little bit about this etude. There's not much to it. I don't think there's any rhythms or anything that any of you guys haven't seen yet, but I feel like sometimes some of you guys play an etude for me, and then things like dynamics and where we play on the snare kind of get forgotten every once in a while, right? Like some of y'all are really good about doing that, and some of you kind of just play the same spot on the snare drum no matter what the dynamic is. So I wanted to make sure that we picked an etude that moved around just a little bit, and also in 3/4, so that we're not just thinking in 4/4. It's kind of, we kind of get trained to do 4/4 in everything we do, but we have to also be able to count in 3, okay? So pull your page up right now. I'm going to kind of play through the whole thing at a reasonable tempo. In fact, I'll throw my metronome on. I'll play it slow for you guys first, so you can play along with it at a slower tempo, and then I'll speed it up to kind of like what your final tempo would want to be. Okay, so let's start with like 80. So I'm going to put, whoops, sorry. I'm going to put my metronome on 80 on the 8-note click, okay? And if you really want to keep yourself in check, I can make my metronome go to 3/4, right? So I can kind of change the clicks to where it has that different sound on the 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if you can do that, that would be great. Okay, I'm going to just set this aside and play this for you. Okay, from the top. 1 and ready and go. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a tap to the edge. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a tap. Now middle dynamic. 1 and a 2 and 3 and a 1 and 2 and a 3 and 1. Rest and 3. 1 and a 2 and 3 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a tap down to the edge. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a tap to stay piano. 1 and 2 and 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3 and 1 and a 2 and and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3 and forte, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1. Here's the extra credit. 1 and a 2 and 3 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3 and a 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 1 and 3, 1, 2 and a 3 and a 1 and 3 and 1. Right, and you just kind of let that last roll fermata kind of die away since it's slowing down and it's diminuendoing, right? So that very last line, if you do the, hold on, sorry, let me turn this off. That very last line, if you do the extra credit, says dim poco al fine. What that means is get softer and slow down a little bit till the end, okay? So that's, excuse me, it's a good thing to work on, okay? So things to think about while we do this. You want to use arm on rolls, just like we talked about last week. So when I do this forte roll, I am just a little bit off center. Remember, we never want to play center of the snare drum, especially when we're doing something that's like forte or less, right? The center is saved for really big moments that are like fortissimo and accent, and we don't want that sound, especially in a roll. So just a little bit north of center on this first roll with arm. And then you'll notice I go to the edge and I use arm again, and then piano rolls are denser, right? So this forte roll, I'm really only getting about 3 strokes per buzz. If I was to slow that down, it would sound like this, which is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's actually only 3 or 4, right? And then when I do it soft, I'm really trying to get a dense and longer buzz. So there's more taps on that soft buzz than there are a louder one. So I can't do it, push it as much on the loud one, or it gets that really dead sound. So it's kind of open and then push in. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1. Right? And then we have mezzo forte rhythms, no problem. Just play that about 6 inches, and that's halfway between the center and the edge, right? That's about our money spot for playing mezzo forte, those middle dynamics, right? So we play that for a while. 1 and a 2 E and 3, 1 and 2 E and 3 and 1. Dotted quarter note right here on this last bar, the first line. That's the dotted quarter note that everybody seems to miss. And we got to rest on beat 2, and we play and 3, right? 1 and 2 and 3, 1. Okay. By the way, all rolls in this are 16th note based. I probably should have mentioned that earlier, but in general, that's kind of your go-to rhythm for doing rolls until further notice, right? Sometimes we'll have to do them a little faster if it's a slower tempo. Like this 80 beats per minute is kind of slow for 16th notes, but it's okay to work on them that slow. And then when you get to like 120, then it's a lot easier to do 16th note rolls, okay? Excuse me. So second line, more of the same, just a nice long forte roll with an accented tap at the end, and then we go out to the edge, do a soft piano roll again, okay? And then we kind of do more of the same, except we do it all piano now, right? So which means that we're doing a lot more arm stroke when we play it. We kind of go, so this is the second bar from the end on the second line, right? So it goes 1, 2 and 3, 1 and a 2 E and 3 and then we go crescendo, 1 and a 2 and 3 and big roll again. Now denser buzz at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 1, right? Okay, so you'll notice that I move around on the pad. I do a nice big stroke for the forte rolls. It's more open. I go down to the edge for the soft stuff, and it's denser, and I use more arm. Okay. Then you want to do just like we did in everything else. Once you get comfortable with that little bit, knock it up about 4 beats on your metronome, and try it again until you can do it about 4 or 5 times correctly at that tempo. Then go up to 4 beats and just keep working it up each day. You don't have to do it all in one day, right? Keep spacing it out throughout the week. And then eventually, just like everything we're doing that's kind of 16 note bass, a good tempo to make sure that you have a grasp on it is being able to go 120, which is march tempo, right? So anything like we're playing right here. 120 is a nice solid tempo that you should be able to work on. So I'm going to kind of finish this just by playing this at 120 for you, okay? So from the top. 1, 2, 3, set and ready and go. 2, 3. Middle dynamic. 1, 2. 2, 3. Softy here. 1 and 3. 1 and a 2 and 3. 1, 2, 3. 1 and a 2 and 3 and 1. Then soft. Extra credit right here. 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and a 3 and I'm slowing down. And 3 and a 1, 2 and a 3 and a 1, 2 and 3 and 1. Alright guys, so just do that first little portion right there where I have it bracketed off on the third line and then try the end there. I think, now look at it again, it diminuendos poco by poco and then the retardando is only in the last bar. I kind of slowed the end there. Let me just play that last little bit where you save the slowdown to the very last bar, right? So here's the extra credit. Set, ready, and. 2 and 3 and 1. Okay, cool. So thanks for checking in last week and sending your submissions. We're gonna do that same thing this week, and I'll get a chance to listen to y'all your submissions from last week here pretty soon, and then we'll do the same next week. Okay. Hope y'all are staying safe, and we'll see you next week.